everybody, how's it going? We are back. Not that we were here before, we were actually accidentally somewhere else on my personal page. Go check that out. But we'll start over. We'll do the intro again. Hi, Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV, live if you're watching us live, or on the archive if you're watching the archive. I'm coming to you from Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix. Chime in, tell us where you're watching from. And my guest today, Rob Mitzner, who's in Brooklyn, New York, in the studio where he makes all his magic. And you're not going to believe this. I still want to say C-Suite Studios because I got C-Suite on my mind. The name of your studio is?
C-Room Studio.
C-Room. Room,
yes.
Suite. Oh, boy. I was thinking corporate management.
This suite would be a little too fancy, I think.
Well, the suite, yeah. We won't go there. What I was thinking. So hey, folks, we're going to talk about something really cool. It's there on the player, but it's Rob's new book, Drumming in a Band, Stuff You Can Use. It couldn't be more straightforward, blunt, and at the same time, matter of fact. This book is loaded with really interesting goodies, and there's something very unique about it. It's very 21st century in that it does come with videos, charts, all kinds of other goodies and audio for every single lesson. And there's how many, Rob?
There's 53 grooves in the first part of the book in all different styles. And in the second part of the book, there are 18 full-length original tracks that I produced with all of my projects in different styles that I play with here in New York City. And it all has video, multicam video, and explanations for everything. There's audio, there's drummerless play-along tracks, so you can play, with the band and with a click track if you want to do that. And there's interviews with all 20 of the musicians who took part in the book. So you can hear all about the role of the drummer from everybody else in the band. I wanted it to really cut through and be something that people could use in a practical sense. Like you could take this information and take it right out onto a gig or a rehearsal or, any musical situation.
That's awesome. And folks, if you check out the description of this post, the description of the book is there, as well as a link to where you can get it at Hudson Music. And just to give you an idea of how vast this covers, I'm going to read some of the wonderful topics, and there's no subtopics. Or there's tons and tons of subtopics under each topic, but just real quick, just some of them. Groove Workshop 1, rock. Groove Workshop 2, drum and bass reggae. R&B, funk, and soul. You got world music. You got roots, jazz, odd time signature, soloing, backing a soloist, a very important thing to know. Lead sheets, charts, roadmaps, all kinds of things. And there might be a little bit of a doubling effect on me or Rob's voice because I have a new speaker setup, and it doesn't have a headphone jack, and I forgot to bring my extension for my headphones from my studio downstairs to plug into my tower. So sorry about that. Maybe I could just back off the mic a little bit. Steve will let me know. I'll watch my text. Thanks, Steve. So, Rob, first, you've got all these different styles, and I know, as you mentioned, you play all these different styles around town and whatnot. What is your personal favorite style to play? If you could do one gig of any genre, that one genre for the whole 3-hour gig, what would it be?
Well, here's the thing. I consider myself to be an improviser and a creative musician first. That is the thing that I enjoy doing. I want to create something in any style that I play. I grew up playing jazz. Jazz was my first love, but I took all of the lessons from jazz, a lot of the concepts as far as coming up with interesting ideas, interacting with the other musicians, locking into a groove. And I took those things and I tried to apply them to all the other styles that I play. So I love to play rock and R&B and groove and lay back into that. I like backing up singers. I like playing with rappers. All of these things are in the book. I like doing anything where I can create interesting musical parts and feel like I can be creative. That's really what it's about. The creativity and that's the part of my brain that gets happy when I play, that creative center.
That's awesome. And folks, chime in with questions or comments if you've seen Rob play before or have questions about how to learn from a process like this. And let us know where you're watching from. And I am going to show some clips. In fact, let's first show an official promo video of the book. Let's do that first.
I had a classic breakdown. I got a classic call.
You want to keep that in your head, but you don't necessarily want to just repeat that over and over again.
Very often when I solo, I try not to play any downbeats.
You always need me, wanting more. You always leave me wanting more. Now, baby, with you, I've never been so sure.
Combinations ready. I'll form the head. I'll form the head. I'll form the head. I'll form the head. I'll form the head.
Red, violet, stick together, some say. Ultra megafauna only click together one way. If that is apocryphal, might offer you turns up top where the views at you could look stern.
The idea with this one is you got to lay way back in the pocket. It has to be relaxed, but not so relaxed that the time gets funny.
Neon lights dissolve any low-hung clouds, and the night is a great empty page.
I'd be fine without you.
There's so much there, Rob. So many.
That's not even all of it yet.
I know. And we didn't even show the whole thing, and there were still like, I think I counted 9 styles of music or something.
Yeah.
Which is great. And the interesting thing is that they all are in some way related, the same way you said. You took what you learned from jazz and saw how to apply it elsewhere. And some people do that inside out, or from different directions, but most music comes from something else, if not all music, really. But yeah, that must have been a fun project. With the time warp / blur of the pandemic, I don't remember when you and I first started talking about it until when it came out. What was that timeline?
Basically, I signed the deal with Hudson Music in either November or December of 2020, and then I spent
maybe a month or two before you and I started talking about it and connected.
Yeah, it was around that, right? Somewhere around then is when we spoke and when that started to happen. And then basically my idea was to come up with all of the music first, because I knew what I wanted the book to be. Basically, I wanted the book to be this sort of tool that people could use to learn a little bit about every style, because I feel that every style is related, and knowing a little bit about each one helps you get better at each one individually. Right. You don't have to be like an expert on every single nuance of every style in order to be successful playing it on a gig. You're just trying to defend yourself if somebody calls something on you, because we've all been there, right? You've been there, like somebody asks you to play something, you're like, well, I'm not exactly sure what is that,
and what's a samba?
Yeah, well, and that's it. And there's a samba in the book. Yeah. Now, if you get called to do a Brazilian gig by the heavy Brazilian cats, you'll want to go find a book on samba and work on that. But if you want to know how to play, the basic technique. Yeah, if you want to know a basic, and you got to know the difference between a samba and a rumba and a cha-cha and a mambo and all that stuff. Those are the basics of the Latin vernacular. So if you know a little bit about that, you can defend yourself in all those situations. It's just like I write about this in the book, but it's about having tools in your toolbox to figure out, what do I do? I'm on the spot here. How do I make this work? Like I just need and if you have just like a little bit of information, and for some things you need more than a little, believe me, but I would say that just having stylistic versatility is just so important. It'll make you sound better no matter what style of music you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the most challenging thing about putting this whole project together? Was it coordinating with all the other musicians? Was it writing out? It's so robust in the whole layout and the notation and the stories. I mean, everything that goes into it. What was the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge was that I had so many different parts of it. All those things that you just mentioned are like separate tracks. So they're all moving along at the same time. And just individually producing this much music, it would be a huge challenge. I mean, all this was done remotely. So these people, the artists would record their parts and send them back to me, and I'd have the master file here, and I'd put it together. And then when the songs were finished, we sent them off. Charles Burst is a great mixing engineer, and he an old friend at the Seaside Lounge Studios, and he mixed pretty much every track for the book. So there was a lot of back and forth with that, and I think the biggest challenge was just like project management. There's a lot there, and the actual writing of the book and the playing of the drums, not that it wasn't challenging or time consuming or whatever, but for me, that's the stuff that I was already experienced at and already could do. But working on the layout, I had an incredible bit of luck. Well, the husband of one of my close friends who's a singer, who's in this book, Andrea Capozzoli, her husband, Ricky, is a graphic designer. And he laid this book out and he designed it. Yes. And and the folks at Hudson Music, helped us with the cover and did that. But Ricky was really the one, Ricky Hammerschmidt, that took this from like level 2, the way I had it, and brought it up to like level 9. Because like, if you look at the first half of the book, there's all these great little graphics. Like there's each groove has a tip jar. And he came up with this little tip jar icon and all the pictures and stuff. He made them look like, like you're on vacation and you've taken all your photos and put them in an album. Like, yeah. I'm just so blown away by, what he was able to do. Like the moment that I got really excited for this was when I saw what he did the first time. I was like, okay, we got something here now after seeing that.
I love that feel.
Oh yeah, thank you.
They even look like they're scotch taped on there.
Yeah, that was Ricky. That was Ricky.
Yeah, that's cool. It's very genuine and authentic. Barbecue from Green Mesquite in Austin.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. Shout out to Green Mesquite in Austin, Texas. I didn't get to go to South by Southwest this year, but that's my secret little barbecue place that I like down there. But I thought, why not? When you're on the road and you're playing in different places, the food is a big part of it too. So I put some pictures of the food, just to make it look interesting. Why not?
Part of the experience, absolutely.
Yes.
Would you say that one of the biggest things that not just drummers but most musicians miss out on is by getting stuck, no pun intended, but stuck in one groove of this is my lane and I'm only going to play this kind of stuff, which is okay, but they don't learn from outside of that to bring into that?
Yeah,
and this
I think
book
so.
is designed to help drummers get out of that, right? And expand their horizons.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first section in the rock grooves section, there's 10 of them, and I think, or 9, and I think that really is exactly what you're talking about. there's faster ones and slower ones. They're all pretty backbeat oriented. There's like a lot of snare on 2 and 4 going on in all those grooves, but they're not the same. Some of them are like, one big theme of this book, one of the biggest themes of this book is beat placement in relation to the metronome, because some grooves need to be a little on top of the beat. Some need to be more behind the beat, laid back, and some need to be right dead center. This is a concept that's important for recording, with a click track, but it's also really important for live performance because, the way a groove feels, you could get 10 drummers and they could all play the same groove and everyone would feel different. And it's because of the beat placement relative to the metronome. And so Dmitry Yashenko is the bass player who's on almost all the tracks in this book. And he and I talk about beat placement in front of the beat, behind the beat, for like all 53 of those tip jar bits in the first half of the book.
Wow.
That's all just beat placement. Like, it's so important. It's everything. Everything.
On that note, how much does it vary through all of those? What percentage would you say, or just as an example of how important and varied that could be, what percentage are right on the beat?
Honestly, I think it's split pretty evenly. I tried to really create something, create a lot of different options for people. Now, for example, if you're playing a rock groove, a lot of those grooves need to be on top of the beat and they need to be really driving, right? But there are some that can be behind the beat. If you're playing like drum and bass, that's got to be like way on top, like almost pushing ahead. But don't rush, but just pushing ahead. And then when you get like to jazz or to like the New Orleans grooves or, the reggae beats, that has to be way behind, But when I say behind, I mean, your click track does not change. Your metronome does not change. The positioning of what you're playing, the stuff that you're playing, changes relative to that metronome.
Right.
And knowing how to do that and how to feel that and feeling safe enough with the metronome that you can go a little ahead, go a little behind, whatever, is something that it's really hard to do, and it takes a long time to learn that. And I hope that when people use the play along tracks in this book, that they'll really try to emulate that, when they're playing along without the drums, they'll try to make that happen, because that's the thing that you can really get out of this, like with the drummerless tracks. You can work with the bass player and he might be a little ahead, you might be a little behind, but it all locks up into the perfect groove.
Yeah.
So
nice. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the book in a little bit, because I want to tie the book and what you have in the book, the stuff in the book that you can use, with influences. We'll get back to that. But one of the influences I want to talk about ties into a project that you did. Gosh, has it been 2 years or no? It's been. When did you do the Charlie Parker project? Time is just such a spiral.
I know
for me right now.
The Charlie Parker project was my pandemic project. So that took place, I think, late 2020, early 2021, something like that.
That's right. And folks, I don't know if you've seen any of this. We featured a bunch of it when it came out on Drum Talk TV. I'm going to play a few things. I think we'll save the final one for last, if you know what I mean. But we're going to play, before we play an excerpt of Bird Gets the Worm, kind of explain the project first for people who aren't familiar with it. It still fascinates me.
My teacher, my late teacher, Bob Galati, who I studied with in Boston when I was living there for a number of years, always would give all of his students the assignment of taking the Charlie Parker Omni book, which is a transcription of 60 of Charlie Parker's the melodies and the solos. So just the melody and the solos out of some live recordings and his albums and stuff, playing those melodically around the drum set as if you were a horn player. And he always used to, he would teach us that, and it would be a way to improve your melodic voice and sort of free you up from this idea of being in the box of what the drummer plays, to kind of make you phrase the way that a horn player
Right.
would phrase. And I decided he would have us do one of those a week during the lesson, and
Wow.
he had thousands of students over the years. And he would give that to everybody. And I just thought over the pandemic that this would be a good opportunity for me to honor him. He passed away in January of 2020. And I thought a good way to honor him would be to play the whole book down in one sitting.
Nuts.
And yeah, which took, 3+ hours. Play the whole book down and talk about each tune. And I even drew a little silly picture, for each song, sort of a cue card kind of thing. And, it was just something that was really important to me when I was working on it. I felt like it really helped my drumming. And it's also a concept that I've included in my book as well.
How much of it, before I play a little clip from that, and I'm looking at comments, folks, I'm not watching the Flintstones. I have my monitor over here. The Flintstones are over here. If you see
I
me
thought you
look
were
over there,
checking
I'm
your
watching the
email.
Flintstones. But I'm looking over here at the comments. And feel free to ask questions and whatnot for Rob. But when you did this project, how much of it was just, it's mainly just sight reading, right? Like, I don't think you sat down and did 5 or 8 takes of everything and practiced like too much ahead of time. Is it most of it sight reading, Rob?
Well, leading up to when I did the live stream, I was practicing quite a bit to
Right,
try to
because you
get,
did
to
do a
get
live
everything
stream of the whole
together.
thing.
Yeah, but it was one take. I mean, there was no edits. There was no, that was what I felt like was the real challenge for me, and that's what I was looking for at that time, because I did it at a time when there were no gigs. There was only a little bit of music happening during the lockdown. I guess I actually did this. It was summer of 2020 is when it happened. So it was, the outdoor thing, the outdoor gigs were just sort of becoming a thing. And I just needed a challenge, and I wanted to honor him. And so basically I shedded it for, a couple weeks before and got it together. And then I just sat down and did it. So
It's awesome stuff. Check out
warts and all.
Yeah. Check out some of Bird Gets the Worm. Check this out. I just love that. I want to shoot 2 more.
That's the fastest one in the book.
I want to shoot that. That's why I wanted to do that one first. But before the final one, let's do Parker's Mood. Check this out. And I decided just to play the whole thing. I realized that they're not that long. Check this out.
No. And I want to just let people know that we know
that the notation is partly covered up there with the image of the book. We wanted to have that up there. If you want to see all the notation, get the book, get this book, get those videos, check those videos out. They're on your YouTube channel and your Facebook page, right, Rob?
Yeah, there's some videos. You're talking about the Charlie Parker videos, you mean? Yes, they're in a lot of different places. So.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about influences, and I want to kind of, as best you can, relate them to the book.
Sure.
Me saying, if I were to just pull out a few different things here, what are one of your favorite or a couple of each of these different genres that you have in the book that I'm going to call out? So for the first one, rock, what would be two of your top influences?
Oh, drumming? You mean my favorite drummers? Yeah, I mean, it's of course, you know, like I feel still that Ringo doesn't get the credit he deserves for coming up with the parts that he came up with. And he was a major influence on me at the beginning of my musical development. And I always felt like Ringo's orchestration of the drum parts was so good.
Yeah.
And so he was an influence. You know, I also was super into Aerosmith when I was younger, and I always felt like Joey Kramer had the biggest, fattest rock sound, and he played really simple, solid parts, and I was influenced by that too. Now, of course, there's John Bonham, and you know, we could go on and on with, you know, so many drummers, but like I'm just thinking back to my younger days of guys that were
that's perfect. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
How about reggae?
Well, I mean, the thing is, you know, I wouldn't call myself someone who's like I haven't gone super deep into the reggae thing, but I would say that, you know, like I would put reggae grooves in the same basket as like any sort of like pocket kind of stuff. And I learned all that like those pocket grooves, you know, for example, you know, the New Orleans kind of stuff, the reggae stuff, the roots stuff, all that stuff kind of came from the same tree, at least for me.
Yeah.
You know, I like Stanton Moore, who wrote a beautiful testimonial for the back of the book. Like I always listen to him for all those New Orleans grooves. Let me think. I'm trying to. You put me on the spot.
His second line stuff. He's just
such a like that kind of stuff. And you know, I feel like just knowing the right feel and the beat placement for that is really the key to making it work. So.
Yeah, and also the sounds of the drums make such a huge difference. You know, you could play a reggae, you could do the math of reggae on any setup, but for it to sound like reggae, the drums need to be the right sounds, sizes.
Yeah,
you got to hit them a certain way. You know, all of that.
Like for example, in the drum and bass section of the book, which is it's not super long. There's a couple patterns, but you know, you want short sounds, right? You don't want cymbals that are decaying all over the place.
You want all over the place.
You want like I got the Peisty. Thank you to Peisty, by the way, for providing some cymbals for the video shoot for this. They hooked me up, and that was really great to be able to do that. And they have a PSTX line, which is like the cymbals with the holes in them, and they have less decay, right? So it's not washing all over the place. That's what drum and bass is you know, that's what you want. Now, when you play jazz, you can have more decay and wash. You want maybe a little more of a broad open sound. You know, not everybody, you know, you can make it work with, if you know what you're doing, you can make the drums sound good, even if they're tuned wrong or they're the wrong sizes or whatever. But still, like you make a really good point. Like it's important to have the right gear.
Yeah, cool.
So,
do you have influences in funk and soul that you want to refer to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, just going back to my youth. I mean, Clyde Stubblefield. Like you learn all those James Brown grooves. That's in the book. Bernard Purdie, who there's a picture of us in the book, which is pretty cool. I met Purdie a couple of times. He was a big influence, you know, playing with Aretha Franklin and all those guys.
Yeah.
So those are two big ones for me in that kind of scene. Yeah.
Awesome. And then we've got, like I mentioned, you've got all kinds of odd time signatures, some stuff on soloing, backing a soloist, jazz, roots, world music. Do you have any specific world music influences? I'm a huge fan personally I love taiko drumming, so that covers that part of Asia. I love West African drumming. And Peter Lockett is one of my favorites who really covers all the bases. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I was first introduced to that stuff by my first teacher, who is Steve. His name is Steve Lawrence, and he basically was the one who sort of planted the seed for this book for me. Way back, because like the main tenet of this book, being versatile stylistically, was what he taught me. He would write these patterns, and some of these patterns in this book are like pretty close to what he gave me when I was growing up. And I learned, a lot of the Afro-Cuban music I learned by listening to, jazz and hearing the influences of that. Like Elvin Jones has so much, his patterns, like there's a lot of Afro-Cuban influence in there. And so like I was introduced to that kind of thing through that.
That's neat.
So
cool. And let's refer now to the piece that is the dedication to Bob Galati.
Yeah.
The very last piece called Blues for Bob. So it's written out there, and I'm going to play the video right now.
Cool.
Which is really cool. Here we go. Song number 18 for Bob. Blues for Bob. It's literally too cool.
Oh, thanks.
And I paused it where I did. I'm going to bring the video back up from where I stopped it because it's an overhead view. It's your behind the head camera. And I'd like you to run us through the gear. That Paiste ride is an amazing, delicate, light touch, tinkly jazz ride.
Yes.
It sounds so good. So let me bring that up. Oops.
Oh, sure.
There it is. I'll stop
I have to remember what's there, actually. That's actually, you know what that is? That's the Steve Jordan ride. That's the 22 ounce. Yeah, that's the 22 inch signature traditionals ride. That's the Jordan.
The 22 ounce. I was gonna say, no wonder it sounds so light.
It's not that light. No, that's the 22. Yeah, that cymbal is so great. I can play. Yeah, I can really. It has so many overtones and so many great subtle things underneath the attack that I can just play so many things into that cymbal. You know, you just it's like you just keep digging and there's more with that.
Yeah.
You know, so
how about what drum heads do you use?
I'm a Remo artist, and all of the drums here in the studio, I use controlled sound X on the snare, and then I have coated emperors on the toms. And you know, I just feel like I get the beefiest sound that way. I mean, you don't always want beef, but especially when you're recording, because I do a lot of recording here, and I feel that you want that, like you want that real beef, and that's what I get with those Remo heads. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And of course, you're playing Hendrix drums.
yes, well, the snare is a Hendrix drums walnut stave snare, the archetype series, archetype, and the drums are actually vintage Ludwigs from like 1970.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Why was I
Yeah,
thinking the whole...
white marine pearl.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. It's beautiful, too. It's so classic.
Yeah, so that's you know, and that's actually, I think, like I love vintage drums, and I feel like there's a lot of versatility with that kit.
Yeah.
So-
Do you collect more drums than
Well,
what you play?
excuse me. No, I mean, I wish I could collect. I
It's
don't.
a nasty
living
habit.
living in New York City, you don't really have space to collect.
That's,
But I have.
you collect
yeah,
lack of space. That's about it.
I know. Yeah, all I would be collecting was just right, lack of space.
That's funny. What's next for you? What do you have planned? You're getting out and gigging, I'm sure. You're doing a lot of session work. You going on
Yeah.
tour with anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to do some playing with the artists in the book. I would like to definitely give a shout out to all the musicians who helped me put this book together, because I really think that without them, it would not have been anywhere near as good, and it would not have been as useful, because, you know, I interviewed everybody, and I learned a lot of things just from interviewing them about the role of the drums.
Right.
And, you know, I guess this is a roundabout way of answering your question, saying I'm playing with the artists from the book, you know, a lot. And that's great now that things are happening again, and tours and recordings and things are, yeah, I mean, recordings have been going the whole time, but now that live shows are really starting to pick back up, you know, like, for example, the one of the horn players in the book, Jared Sims, a great horn player, he had a quote in the book about how he listens to the drums to help him kind of keep the form and where he is sometimes. If he has a long rest at the beginning of the tune, he of course will be counting along to know where he's supposed to come in with his part. But he listens to the drums for kind of like roadmap cues and stuff. That was something that, of course, I knew, but it never like really occurred to me until I asked him that.
Yeah.
So there, you know, there's that kind of quote, and like one of the guitarists in the book was talked a lot about tonal interplay with the drums, like making sure that if the guitar's up high, the drums, you know, wouldn't be bashing the cymbals in that moment, and you know, have like a clash. So all that kind of stuff, you know, the artists in the book, I feel like the musicians really make it come to life, because you find out stuff that maybe you're not going to find out from me. You know, you're getting the information that I'm getting from them. I'm just passing it through to you, the reader. So that's what's coming up. I mean, I'm playing, with all the different artists in the book around New York City, and touring a little bit, and just spreading the word about the book. That's
great.
So
without pissing anybody off, do you have a favorite venue?
A favorite venue to play, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, gosh, I mean...
One! If you picked one, Rob, one.
I don't know. I've had some pretty amazing shows at the Blue Note in New York before. That place kind of has a special feeling to me, playing there, and just, it's kind of like a shrine of jazz. And, yeah, I mean, it would be hard for me to pick against that place. I mean, there's of course like the Village Vanguard and other amazing jazz venues, but the Blue Note, I'll take that.
Cool. The Blue Note.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks everybody so much for joining Rob Mitzner and myself. You gotta get this book. This book has so much to it, because you don't just get the book, you get charts, you get the songs actually. You get the audio parts, you get them without drums, you get them with the click, you can get the videos, multi-camera shoot videos. You get perspectives on what's the drummer's role from all the 20 musicians that played on this.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well,
And
congratulations
there's
on
thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there's a lot of places you can get it too. I mean, you can get it. I like you can get signed copies from me. I'm selling them on my website, but you can also get them from Hudson Music or Amazon or all these different places. I also want to thank Hudson Music for getting behind this project and really helping me put it together. And I mean, they're like they've been in the drum book business for a long time, and they published a lot of great books, this year and recently. And I just want to thank Rob Wallace and Joe Bergamini and the guys there, like, for believing in me and believing in this project and giving me a chance to do it. So
Cool. Well, it came out really well. Excited
Thank
for you. Stay in touch. Keep me posted. Let me know what you're up to. Hang on the line. And folks, again, thanks so much for joining Rob Mitzner and myself here on Drum Talk TV. Lots of fun stuff coming up. Depending on when you're watching this, maybe some of this stuff already happened. In April, we've got Liberty DeVito coming back. We have Bill Bruford for the first time. We have Cindy Blackman Santana returning. And we have Dominic McNabb returning. And Scott Kentner has a new book on tambora, on tambourine playing, frame drumming and stuff, a great percussionist. So watch for those. And we're booking for May and June right now. Also, we'll keep you up to date. Sign up for the newsletter and you'll get all the dates for those and some special things, including a tribute to Mr. Hawkins, and also my big birthday jam. I'm going to play 25 influences, one song from each. Actually, a little secret. I'm going to play 2 from one of them because they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of an album this week. But if you chime in on those posts that are advertising it and suggest a song, you're in the running for one of many different Drum Talk TV shirts we'll be giving away. And one lucky person, well, depending on how you look at it, will get to host a show with me as well. So tune in. That's noon Pacific, 3 Eastern U.S. times, Saturday, April 2nd. My last year in my 50s, and I'm going to make sure the 50s remember me. So join the party, and you might be surprised at the cross-section of music that I'll be playing. Well, I might have to make it 26. I just thought of one I left out. Okay, Rob, thanks again so much. We'll do it again. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.